With the season finally coming to a close and a debut of an Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, it just all feels surreal. For the first time in a long time, if I'm confronted by someone nagging to me about how F1 isn't a sport, how it is utterly unwatchable and beginning to question if the only reason I subject myself to 3 hours of F1 every weekend is for the slight chance of seeing Leclerc's beautiful, lush hairdo blowing in the paddock headwind. Unlike the previous years where I would just be a sheep, nod my hand in agreement and hide my monogas themed underwear, this year is different. This year I more than proudly state to all my friends and family that I like F1. I am an F1 fan, and yes, I do want the Carlos Sainz bobblehead for Christmas.
For the last season with Carlos, it's been an absolute pleasure to work with him, and I wish him the best. And yeah, thank you again for everything. And I'm sorry that today wasn't enough. Yeah, good job, guys. We tried our best. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Ferrari. It's been a pleasure driving for you guys. I wish you the best for next year. I've lost both my hearing drums.
The 2024 season was just one of those things that I actually think we've taken for granted. I can't recall the last time I witnessed an F1 season so packed with front row wheel-to-wheel racing, sudden mid-season dominance shifts, fantastic wins, and colossal failures. To be completely frank, I can't help but to feel at least a little sentimental. Not sure if it was the somber tears of Carlos Sainz realizing his championship's hopes have likely faded as Freddie chose a limping soon-to-be-retired old fart over him, or the jubilant but deeply frustrated Lando who tried to hold back his sadness, realizing the season is over, and he might have just pissed away his only shot becoming the only one to overtake the Dutch Dot in the Drivers' Championship this year. Or just the fact that I'm counting down the final days of Sergio's career. Either way, I'm beaming with emotion right now. I've been moved. So today, I wanted to take some time to reflect on my Formula 1 journey, how I've come to love this really quirky sport, and why today I am truly proud to call myself an F1 fan. I'm actually getting f***ing emotional, mate. What the fuck? Or it might just be because I haven't had any booze today yet, and my body's showing signs of withdrawal. Let me go get a bit. 1 sec. When I first stumbled into the world of Formula 1, I wasn't actually looking for a hobby that would have me boarded up at home and isolated from society for half the weekends in a year. Probably why I can name less women than F1 drivers. For my first F1 Grand Prix though, I was just 11 years old, flipping through the TV channels on a Sunday evening because there was an ad break on Nickelodeon, and I had to somehow pass the time until the next SpongeBob SquarePants episode. Alright, fine. My dad was passed out on the couch, so that felt like my only opportunity to stumble onto some TV porn. Are you happy? I didn't have a computer back then. I had to make do on my own. And there it was, a bunch of tiny men in oversized helmets zooming around a glorified Hot Wheels track at 200 miles an hour. And I thought right there and then, yeah, this is it. This is my new personality for the next 20 years. But it wasn't just the immeasurable speed, the magnificent engine noise or the Marlboro Reds livery. No, it was the drama. There is truly nothing better on a Sunday night than to watch 20 overpaid arseholes race around in some of the most expensive cars on the planet, screaming profanities into their radios, complaining that the teammate is a daft cunt for not giving you a perfect slipstream on the straight. Like, imagine Game of Thrones, but instead of the inbreeding and midgets, you've got stunning German men and Italian beauties. Okay, that actually sounds like I did end up stumbling onto some porn after all. But the action, and the plot twist, and the betrayals and disappointments, ugh, you just couldn't write any of it, even if you tried. Well, I guess it's been done before. Oh my god. I was choking my spit. But F1 isn't just about the cars, and I will run the risk of sounding like a typical 57-year-old CEO of a large corporate that just cut 50% of its workforce in favor of shitty AI, but it's all about the people. And by people, I mean the 20 prima donnas flying around the world in their private jets getting paid millions, riding on each other to the steward's first chance they get. First up, you've got Lewis Hamilton. This man is not just a 7-time world champion, he's also the human embodiment of a Rihanna song. Unbothered, over-moisturized, and clearly past his expiration date. Then there's Fernando Alonso, the sport's eternal pensioner. He's like that one hot grandpa that you kind of think could pull a tenner from the club, but the paparazzi might mistake her for his daughter at this point. In any case, one thing for sure, he's still kicking about, stealing podiums from drivers born after Shrek 2 came out. If we were to measure F1 success by comparing drivers to their teammates, Fernando would not only be crowned a 7-time world champion, but also get reprimanded by the FIA for bullying the disabled. Speaking of the disabled, there is also Checo Perez, who any second now will be able to update his LinkedIn picture to have the little open to work label under his fucking miserable mug. I'm actually so happy that Horner waited this long to fire him from the team, because this way there's no way he will be able to find another team on the grid to absolutely terrorize next year. Nevertheless, he is a record-breaking driver. Yeah, believe it or not. For example, this year, he became the first driver since Jos Verstappen to have partnered the drivers' champion and himself finishing in fucking 8th. Ironic, innit? And let's not forget our beloved Charles Leclerc. If perfection had a face, and it would be severely depressed, it would be him. Watching Charlie drive for Ferrari is like watching a child actor completely destroying their sanity and entire livelihood following their one-hit piece they started in when they were younger. But instead of parties, drugs and hookers taking him into an eternal pit of despair, it's just the Ferrari pit wall. I think the way he downed a whole 3-liter bottle of champagne on the podium last week says it all. Anyways, each driver brings their own flavour to the sport. You've got the fat cats, the starving dogs, the boys band candidates, and the ones that look like your local neighbourhood crackheads. And Charlie's so talented he embodies all 4 of them in the same face. And at least one person probably keeps a voodoo doll of Max Verstappen under their pillow. And at this point, there's certainly more than one. It feels like with each year, a new driver joins the f***ed over by the Dutch club. But that's F1 for you, mate. It's a soap opera, but with V12 engines and champagne showers. To be honest, sounds like a typical Ivy League frat party. Also, if there's one thing F1 teaches you, it's that life is short. Like, Nick DeVries' career is short. Watching these guys risk it all for glory, knowing one wrong move could turn $1 billion car into an art installation, is a lesson in and of itself. In and of itself. How the f*** do you say that? It's a lesson in patience. I don't envy these lads. Waiting for a penalty decision or a race start violation is like waiting for your ex to text back. Agonizing, pointless, and you still hold on to hope until the very end. And then you end up screaming, crying, and calling them stupid f***ing idiots on air for 50 million people to hear. That's normal. And yet, everyone has its serious side too. It shows you the resilience of humanity and pushes drivers to the very fucking end of their wits, both mentally and physically. And if anyone ever says that F1 is not physical and therefore not a sport, firstly, who the fuck are you hanging out with? Or rather, how the fuck are you still hanging out with anyone? I've destroyed every relationship I've ever had because the only thing I talk about in life is F1 and serial killing documentaries. And neither really work as long-term conversation pieces. But to be honest, a lot of girls are into murders nowadays, so that sometimes works. F1 doesn't. But mostly, F1 teaches you that even billion-dollar companies can be as dim as the fading brake light in your last year's beater. Some of the decisions that are made by this team, for example, I don't know, mate. I'm surprised they are still in business today. I would imagine they would be bankrupt if it wasn't for Charlie looking like a fucking Fashion Nova model, making all F1 fans spend their last paycheck on any merch he ends up wearing. I can't. I'm immediately salivating looking at his fucking picture. It's just subconscious at this point. It's an animalistic instinct. Animalistic. What the fuck kind of vocab is this? Who wrote this? So why should you become an F1 fan? I think it's quite simple. It's everything life should be about. Fast, unpredictable, petty, and just a little bit dangerous. It's a sport where you can call Ricciardo a shit cunt for not being able to get out of Q3 and then cry as soon as you hear that he's been fired from the sport. Being an F1 fan means living on the edge of your seat, your sanity, and your bank account. Especially if you're naive enough to think you can try and go see a race in person and not mortgage your home to cover the costs. It's about finding a community of equally demented fucktards who will argue over tire compounds like it's the cure for cancer. And if you're not convinced, just remember this. There's a whole documentary with a new season coming out every year with at least 2 of the 40-minute episodes being purely dedicated to a German man named Gunther, losing his shit over managing a bunch of young daft cunts, peppering the microphone with profanity in ways you didn't even know were possible. And the only way to get what the fuck he's talking about in those short clips is by spending 24 weekends following all of the F1 drama that occurred over the year. So, grab a drink, buckle up, and join the chaos. You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll threaten to never watch this stupid fucking parody of a sport ever again, but you'll come round before the next Grand Prix. Because you always do. But Colapinto is probably not getting a seat next year, so I'm cancelling my Sky subscription.